So this class is buyer consultation. So what I'm going to do is basically open up my consultation with a buyer. I'll go through it with you, give you some tips and pointers. What this is not, this will be a separate class, is actually going over the buyer agency itself and helping you with troubleshooters with that. That's another.
Will you be going over this?
To a point. That is a separate class as well.
I need help with this, and I want to get good notes so that I can practice at home over and over again.
Sure.
Because when I sit down to do it, it's like, how do I do this again?
That's estimated, buyers estimated.
Isn't that what Chicago has?
They do have a formula for that, but I teach a class on how to fill it out without having to have a device with you. So that's.
But they do have an app for that, right?
They do.
Yeah.
I want to know how to do it with my pen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or pencil.
Okay. Okay, so basically what you want is to have some sort of a folder or package of materials and have, 3 of these prepared in your car, 3 prepared in your desk, and then anywhere else that you work. Have them at your open houses, because you just never know when you're going to meet a buyer that's ready to talk to you. I have copies of what is in my buyer packet.
Where can we get those folders at?
Front desks also. And then there are things that I didn't give you copies of, which are in the racks right there, which is the home warranty book, a couple of flyers of my favorite lenders.
Hey, what are
Dawn.
you doing? Who are
Well, I
you?
wanted to be here earlier, but I had to say I was at a meeting at
Okay, that's okay. We are on. Yes, you are on videotape saying that.
Okay, home warranty book, what was the other thing back here?
Home warranty book. I've got my favorite inspectors. I've got some stuff that I got from the Chamber of Commerce about Clay County, Platte County, city. I've got city maps. Kind of depending if I know who the buyer is when I meet them in advance, then I'll prepare something more to the interests. Like if they have small kids, I'll have school information and things like that. There's really no right or wrong. I put in the insurance flyer from the people that support our office. I just try to support them back by, getting them in front of the buyer's eyes. Angie with Lasky Bank for the mortgage. I've got some other, just some other options, people that I work with. So that is also in there. Here's a copy of that for you. And then I just get these folders. They come in different colors, and you can put your cards in them. It's just kind of nice to and then I give the folder to the buyer when we're all done in the evening with all the papers, and then their copy of their buyer agency stuck with it.
So you just bring an extra copy and.
Well, if I'm here, almost every consultation that I do is going to be in this building. I will do sit at Starbucks or Panera, wherever I am, especially if I'm doing an open house that's like out in Lee Summit or something that's more remote. It might be a little harder to get the buyer to drive all the way up here. But they will. I mean, if you just set the tone right, a lot of times they will. Or I'll say to an Overland Park buyer, for example, my office is located here. For the first meeting, I'd like for you to come to my office. After that, I realize it doesn't make sense for you to drive to my office just so we can go out and look at homes, so I will meet you, out in Overland Park. But at least that way I have the big screen, in the conference room. I've got, I have a professional setting, and I'm setting a tone that I'm about to give you some very valuable information, and we're going to do business together. It's a lot more professional. But I have signed buyer agencies on the back of cars, in a vacant house.
Right, but you keep a separate copy in your folder so you can give it to them.
Not necessarily. Well, in that situation, I would just tell them that I would send them back copies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be here anyway. I'm just going to make them copies while they're here. Okay. There's some things here that are not part of my. Okay. So I'm going to start by asking the buyer some questions, kind of a get to know you. The questions are not how many bedrooms, how many baths. They are more questions like what brought you to the decision that you're ready to buy a home? What's changed? What's happened? Happy event, sad event? You know, tell me about that. I'm also just doing some fact finding, maybe a little bit about where they work. I've probably done some of that on the phone, but especially if you have a husband and wife and you've talked to one and not the other, it's helpful to go back and just solidify those questions with the other party that you didn't speak to so that they feel included in your conversation. Just like with a listing, if you do the pre-listing interview and you're talking to one side on the phone, you get there and you only talk to them, the other party feels alienated. Same thing will happen at a buyer's consultation as well. So probably 5 minutes is all I'm spending, just kind of getting to know them a little bit, just verifying what I might already know and getting to know what their motivation is for buying a home. So typically, when I do a full-on buyer's consultation, I like to do it as if I'm talking to a renter because that would be the most inclusive buyer agency consultation appointment that I would have. If you're working with total first-time buyers, I would give a little more time that they're going to have more questions or need more information than if you're working with somebody that's bought or sold 10 or 12 houses. I'm still going to do the consultation for somebody that has experience buying homes because times are different. And what flew in 2003 on applying for a mortgage does not apply now. And anybody that's tried to apply for a mortgage in the last couple of years certainly knows that there's a lot more data that's taken, copies of things, repeat copies of things, update this because maybe another statement came out. There's a lot more verifying that's done now than there was 9-10 years ago. So you need to consult with your buyers on that. So, yeah, we bought and sold tons of houses. Great. Well, I just want to meet you in my office so we can solidify your search, make sure I understand what you're looking for, and just kind of get you up to date on the latest market trends in buying homes today. Would that be great? Great. Okay. So then they're going to come in and I'm just going to talk to them. I'm probably not going to do, for somebody seasoned like that, this whole presentation that you're seeing. You're going to edit the pieces and parts that you think apply to them and will be most useful. Because you don't want to bore somebody that's like, okay, I'm not a renter, this doesn't apply. What I'm about to teach you. Okay? Okay. So one of the things that you're going to see in the packet that I just handed you is something that looks like a calendar. There's a lot of squares on it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, so Dawn, we're going to pretend that you are the buyer. So just work with me a little bit. Maybe we're looking for something, maybe not immediately, but in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay. So Dawn, if the timing were perfect and everything went exactly the way you wanted it, when would you like to be in your new home?
Before Christmas.
Before Christmas. Okay, great. So would that be December 25th, right? Is Christmas. How far in advance of Christmas would you really like to be moved in?
Probably the 1st, so that by Christmas we can be a little more settled.
So you're settled. Okay, great. So December 1st. Now, do you have a lease that's up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
And when is that lease up?
I think that it is up in September.
September?
Yeah.
So what would be your plans? Are you going to extend it, or would moving in September make more sense?
No, I haven't really thought about it.
Okay. Well, how do you feel about that?
Well, it might make more sense. I mean, I don't know if I can extend my lease monthly. If I can do that, I guess I would do that, but I'd have to find out.
Okay. Okay. What was it about December that made you really think that was the month you want to move?
Just wanted to be sure that kids were through the semester in school, or
Okay. Okay.
they'd be better.
You like lifting boxes in 30-degree weather?
We'd hire somebody.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to do that.
Well, because in that case, September would be ultimately optimum
This
good
is
weather.
true.
Okay. Okay. So let's say that you can't extend your lease monthly, and I think that most apartment complexes would do that. It is going to cost you a little more money in rent, typically, to do that. My guess is you don't want to make your move all in one day. So if you're moved in by the 1st of December, you're probably going to have to give a 30-day notice to move out the end of November. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so maybe we're really looking at right before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Does that sound feasible?
Yeah.
Or would you rather it be the first week of December?
Well, I mean, knowing that I have to give notice and everything, that probably makes more sense.
That probably makes more sense,
So
okay.
are you asking her when she wants to actually move or when she wants to close? Is it the same thing
It's
essentially?
the same thing. I'm getting her to think in reality, because you say Christmas.
Right.
But do you see how I've already backed her up a month?
Yeah,
I'm about to back her up another month.
Well, and it's
Okay.
logical though.
Yeah.
It is
So-
logical.
you don't wanna move
Right,
twice.
right. And I'm not doing this to manipulate anybody. I mean,
Right.
we're not, but we're talking about talk through what's happening, so that they have an understanding of what they're saying. There's a term that often gets repeated by real estate agents that starts, buyers are liars and sellers are yellers. And it's not a very good saying, but how it starts is because buyers are liars not because they're liars, but because an agent doesn't do a good enough job consulting them with what their choices are and what the implications of those choices are. So she tells me by Christmas, I'm thinking December 25th, so I'm not gonna follow up, I'm not gonna be showing her houses right now, because it's July. Why would I do that, right? We have plenty of time. But in reality, when you really think about what did I just discern from her, she doesn't want to move the week before Christmas.
Right.
She wants to be settled and have a couple weeks to decorate.
Well, she told you, she didn't even think about that yet.
She didn't even think about it, right? But if I don't ask those questions and come from contribution on why she wants what she wants, I would have never uncovered that. And then suddenly, if I didn't follow up with her for whatever reason or start showing her houses, I could be accused of abandoning her, right? Which would give her the opportunity to find another agent. We don't want that,
No.
right? Okay. So I've got her already right now till December, or till the November. Okay, great. So, Dawn, there's something really cool about when you've been leasing and now you are going to be a homeowner, and I'd like to show you what that is, okay? When you pay your rent, so August 1st is coming up, right? You're going to pay your rent on August 1st, and then what you're actually paying for, right, is all of August, okay? And if you were a homeowner right now and you were making your August 1st house payment, you would actually be paying for the month of July. So when you move in, and let's say we do move in mid-November, right before Thanksgiving, you're going to have a little bit of prorated interest when you close on the house and get your keys to kind of get you to the end of the month. Then you're going to have to wait one whole month, and then your first house payment is not actually due until January 1st. So you're used to making your payments monthly on the first of each month, but when you get to December 1st, you're not going to have to make a payment. So it's kind of like getting 1 month free for buying a house. Isn't that great?
It's great.
Okay, very good. So now what have I done? I've done two things. I have freed the buyer's mind if, especially it's a first time buyer, they're always nervous about the money. They may have it saved, but it's like, it's a lot of money. And when suddenly I give them $800 to $1,000 back into their budget because they're not gonna make a house payment in December when
Right.
Christmas is coming up and they have to buy presents for the kids, have I just freed their mind, and you can literally see the shoulders relax, they kind of giggle, they're excited about that. And even an existing homeowner may forget this fact, so maybe I don't do it quite, for an existing homeowner quite so remedially, because they already kind of understand what they're doing, but I just remind them, hey, as a reminder, you're always paying behind for your mortgage, so when you guys start a new loan, you're gonna get a month off. Isn't that great? Tie it down, isn't it great? Yes, it is. Awesome. So the next thing that I might be able to accomplish for this buyer and for myself is that if she gets a month off, she's maybe not interested in the month free. She can now make a move in October, if that were her motivation, and not have a double payment and have plenty of time to not only decorate for Christmas, but now Thanksgiving. And maybe even Halloween.
And maybe not pay the extra money for the rent.
That's right.
Right,
And I've
right.
saved her that's exactly correct. I've saved
My
her
lease
the
is
month to
out in
month.
September.
Right. So you could just do a prorated partial month in September, or maybe you're okay with 1 month of double payment. Maybe I can get you out of the house in September. So suddenly I've moved your timeline up possibly 3 months. And we could all use a little paycheck 3 months early, right? And your buyer could use a house 3 months earlier than they really thought, as long as the finances and the timing works out for what they want to accomplish, right? So it's kind of, it's nice. So having this conversation and using this chart I used to draw it out on a piece of paper, and when I had an assistant that always saw that on the back of something on my buyer agency consultations, and she's like, would you like me to make you a chart? And I was like, yes. So that is how this came to be. And it really helps just to kind of visualize that, kind of map it out, what's it gonna look like. I'm also gonna come back and use this in another part of the consultation when I do go over that buyer estimated. So now I can reaffirm what their timelines are and just know this is what we're doing, okay? Because technically it may...
Now I'm ready to look at houses here.
Yeah, there you go.
That is exactly correct. But guess what? You need to get your loan approval this week so we can start in August, because it's going to take 60 days to close a loan on average, comfortably. So yeah. So guess what, Dawn? Yeah. Here you thought you had plenty of time, and guess what? We got to get on the stick, right? And if I can always keep synergy from a buyer's consultation to this is the next step next week, to this is the next step the week after, to this is, that's awesome. Now, I will take a buyer agency a year in advance. I have done that. I've signed an 18-month buyer agency for somebody that just signed their lease right before they came to my appointment, thinking they were going to move, and then got cold feet, but still wanted to come in and get the information from me. Liked me. I closed them on, yes, you want to work with me, I want to work with you. So I just signed a very extended buyer agency. And then what ended up happening is they got motivated about 6 months early and decided to break their lease to buy because interest rates dropped. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen to people. But had I not taken the time to go ahead and consult with them and tie them, to me and me to them as their agent, would it have happened, or would it have happened like that, or would I have lost touch with them? I don't know. But don't be afraid to help people and get those commitments done, because that's one less step that you'll have when they aren't ready that you'll have to do. So, okay, so I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to talk about I'm going to get the finances out of the way. Now, I've done this in different patterns. I've changed it many times over my career. This is the one that I feel is comfortable for me right now. But don't feel like you're tied to having to do it in the order that I'm going to tell you. When the market shifted and money became a big deal, and buyers were suddenly having to give down payment, or they hadn't been having to give down payment, they got uptight about the money and the closing costs. So I learned that tackling that up front, so I just freed money from their budget. Now if I just tackle that and, eat the elephant in the room and get that over with, and everything else that's going to come after this is happy. It's fun. We're talking about the house and where we're going to live and what's it look like and all the good stuff. So I like doing the estimated worksheet expense there. So the next thing that I'm going to show the buyer is this estimated sheet. And on line 10 and line 14, sorry. You have the origination fee and the lender fee. I'm going to put a little star by those and draw a line together. And I'm going to tell the buyer, okay, great. So one of the first things that we're going to need to do is we're going to need you to get you approved for your loan. Have you guys done that? Well, we'll talk about that. And then I will want to explain just a little bit about how mortgages work. So this is an estimated expense sheet. Your lender, when you apply for the loan, is going to provide you with one that's going to have a lot of numbers on it, and it's going to look really, really scary. But it's not, okay? It's just a list of expenses, and everyone incurs expenses to buy a house, especially when you have a mortgage. There's just going to be things that you can't control. We are still in a market today that could allow you to buy a home and get their closing costs paid if we make the right deal. Okay, so we can get some help on this from the seller. So don't panic as I start to talk to you about these numbers. Now, I have a list of lenders, and I'm going to provide them, here's this person, here's this person, here's this person that I would like you to talk to. I might give them good and bad, or oh, I really like this person. Now that I know you, I really think you'd be a great fit for X or Y or Z, whoever you refer. And the reason that I want to make that referral is I want control over the transaction. If the buyer comes to you with their own lender, it may be just fine. Their lender may be awesome, and that would be somebody else I can add to my tool belt, for the next time. But if they're got on the internet and got a loan approval from Lending Tree or Quicken Loans, they do not have local people here that are managing that deal. And those are the ones that will always fall apart or get extremely delayed. Everybody's shaking their head with experience in the room.
I always want to use Quicken Loans.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not trying to talk about it.
No. And you're going to pay more money up front. And so, Mr. Buyer, may I explain, or Ms. Buyer? So these are the two fees, line 10 and line 14, that the lender have 100% control over. If they're going to charge you more to do the loan, this is where they're going to get you. Now, every lender is going to have some origination fees. Just know that. It's very rare that a lender doesn't charge something to open the loan and do business with you. But what I want to help you be able to identify is when a lender might be taking undue advantage of you and charging too much. So my rule of thumb is for these two fees, I would really like to see them somewhere between 1 to 1.5% of the loan amount. So if you're borrowing $100,000 for easy math, I would like to see that to be around $100 or $1,000 to $1,500. Now it could be a little more. There are instances where if you pay a higher origination fee, you're definitely going to get a better interest rate. You might get a better PMI, private mortgage insurance rate. There may be some benefit to you, like a credit towards some other closing costs down the line, that money will not be such a big deal. So if it's 2% to 2.5%, it may still be okay. I just want you to ask why. Why? This seems a little higher than what I've been quoted. What am I getting because I'm paying more? Because what I don't want is for you just to be putting more money into the lender's pockets. Granted, they need to get paid. They do a good job and they do a good service for us. But if you're comparing apples to apples to apples, and one lender is going to charge you for exactly the same thing $1,000 less than another lender, well, wouldn't it make sense to just get $1,000 off the house and not need to ask for so much closing cost if that's the route you're going to take? So what I'm doing here by talking them through this is that I'm establishing that I know something that they didn't know that suddenly can save them money. This is proving that all of this knowledge that you guys are getting is providing a value service for your client. Okay, because they don't understand this. I didn't understand it when I bought my first house. I was like, well, it's okay. I just know there's fees.
Just tell me what the bottom line is.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what I said.
And then at closing, it was like $1,000 more. So because that's the way it used to be.
Because you're not doing any points now, are they?
No, points aren't necessary in our market because the interest rates are already so low that it doesn't usually make sense for a buyer to buy down points.
That's what I do, the origination fees. More.
Well, the points are just points. Points are just to buy down your rate. The origination fee is really what the lender wants to pad their pocket with. Now, sometimes they'll use that money to buy incentives from the people that they're sourcing the money from. That can happen. But typically, it's somebody's getting paid that money. When you work direct with a bank that holds their loans, and there are several that do that, so that when you close your mortgage, you're actually writing a check to that person. And they will not charge as high origination fees because their money is made over the life of the loan and the interest that is generated. But a typical mortgage will be sold to someone else, and maybe not even the paper. The paper behind it's still owned by the person that made the original investment, but they sell off the servicing. So it looks like Wells Fargo is your, because they're the biggest buyer of paper, is your mortgage holder, but actually it may still be XYZ company. Wells Fargo is just sending the statements and doing the servicing. Wells Fargo charges a fee for that. Typically servicing fees are 1 to 2%. So they're making money and just, sending the statements and, hey, you're late, or hey, here's your escrow balance, whatever.
My loan has gone through 3 different people last year.
Yeah, and that's very common.
I mean, when I first bought my house, it really came through several people till Wells Fargo got it. And that's been Wells Fargo ever since.
Yeah, they generally don't
5 or 6
resell
years.
what they acquire. Typically, they'll hang on to it. So, but
They've
what's
been great.
different? Yeah,
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah, so what's different is just whether or not they're the actual holder of the paper, you
I
know?
bet you can make a payment online and not have to pay extra.
Absolutely.
Of this rinky-dink company that has my loan now. I can't, if I do a payment online, it's $7. If I make a phone call, it's $10. I can mail it in for free. I'm like, I don't even have checks.
That's funny.
I pay $7 extra every month when I pay it online.
Oh, jeez. All right. So once I get over this part, and I might dash in some numbers just to like kind of based on what we've already
On
talked
the
about.
1.5%.
Yeah, so if
Something
it's
like
a $200,000 loan, I'll like maybe split it up and put like, $1,250 on one line, $1,250 on another, just to kind of give them a placeholder for that amount. And then I don't get into, on this part, when I'm just doing the consultation, I don't get real specific on closing costs. I will, maybe fill out some things, but I'll do more ranges. Like, well, survey might be 500 to 1,000, but that's totally optional. Your flood certificate's going to be, X. Your, escrow closing fee is going to be about this much. I don't get real tied up into having it be exact.
You really can't, yeah, because you don't know the price of the house or anything.
Right, you don't exactly know what their situation is. And really, when I get to the end of it, the inspections, like I might write in some numbers for that.
And that's just based on what you know as far as the inspectors that you use, how much they charge.
Yeah.
How many do you like to give your people, your clients? How many choices of lenders, how many choices of inspectors?
3 is the preferred, is kind of preferred, but you can have a huge list. It doesn't hurt to have more than 3. But you should have at
As
least.
somebody who does remodeling, you always get 3, but you don't want a whole bunch because it gets confusing.
Yeah.
What do you have for the wood infestation, 75?
Yeah. And then like 150 for other, if they do radon or, they need a roof bid or an
And how much
HVAC
is the
bid.
whole house?
I put down 350. Sometimes that can be beaten, of course, but again, I'm not so much worried about what I'm writing in here at this point. When I do it for the file, when they actually write the contract, then I might be a little more specific.
Well, the lender
But
will do this as well.
The lender is going to do this. And technically for our file compliance, when you write the offer, if you can get the lender to send you the good faith estimate, I don't call it that anymore, it's like expense worksheet or whatever. But if you can get that cost sheet sent to you, you can have the buyer sign that one and just
I was
submit
just gonna
that.
say, can we use that instead, the one that they used?
Yeah, but here's the thing, if I can just get one written out with the price here on it and have them sign it, then I'm done. I don't have to go chase down the lender, get a copy
So
of it.
we have to keep a copy of this.
Yes, it is required
Oh,
by
okay.
state law that the buyer have a signed good faith estimate in their file. So this is part of our file compliance.
What
But
about a
not-
home warranty? Do you usually
I
ask the seller?
don't write it, yeah, typically I'm gonna ask the seller for that, but I don't write anything in on home warranty on the buyer's side, yeah. So I'm gonna jot in some numbers, but there's 3 things that are going to be paid outside of closing that I want the buyer to understand are gonna come out of their pocket prior to the closing. And that's gonna be the appraisal and credit report, their earnest deposit, and then their inspections. So when I write down, those numbers, I'm just gonna circle them and write POC, which is paid outside of close.
Which one? You said inspections?
Inspections, appraisals,
And appraisals.
and earnest. I usually stick in $450 to $500 on appraisal. It should be much less than that. Again, I'm not worried about getting them exact. I'm just kind of giving them an idea, because here's how this is going to work. At the very end of this, when I go through it, I'm going to write something like this. It's going to be $1,500 to $2,500. And that's going to be their costs minus the things they're paying at before closing. That's going to be the pure cost to do the loan, which is really only the title work, escrow. They're part of the title work to have a lender on it. A few knick-knack fees on taxes and flood, and then whatever the bank charges them to do the loan. So if I'm working with a $150,000 buyer, I'm just going to put $1,500 to $2,500. I'm giving you a range. I'm not telling them,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to
Exactly.
be $1,852.
Yeah, but will that amount change based on the value of the home?
Yes, so if I'm working
Okay.
with a $400,000 client, that origination fee is obviously right off the bat gonna be a lot more. Now, it's not proratively, it doesn't seem like you see like on a $400,000 house, I don't normally see an origination fee of $4,000, but it is a little bit higher, because it's a larger loan amount.
Well, why are you adding the origination fee? You're not. You just got the,
I just don't have everything written in here.
yeah, but you got the earnest
Earnest.
money.
The appraisal.
Appraisal and credit
And
report and
inspections.
inspection. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Where is the appraisal on here?
There's actually not one, well, credit report / appraisal.
It's line 12, it's together.
Oh, that's why, because I've written other notes in there.
Yeah.
Well, this way they know that they're gonna have to have that right away, because it doesn't wait till closing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to do is just get them in the frame of mind that there is going to be some closing costs. And guess what? The good news is if we make the right deal, if you're very concerned about these costs, we can generally get the seller to help you out. You know, we just gotta go in and negotiate appropriately. Okay. At this point, I still feel like the market will bear that. But if the market gets much more aggressive, you're gonna start to see sellers start to push back on concessions like that. And we'll go back to where we were.
Because the prepaids get paid at closing.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to worry about those.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna dash in some numbers, but at the end, if all you do is let them know what's paid outside of pocket, so they're prepared, and this all isn't at once either, because we're gonna do the earnest, then 10 days, within the next 10 days, we're gonna do the inspections, and then shortly after that, typically the lender will want the check for the appraisal, so it's gonna be kind of staggered out. Yeah. Okay, so then I'm gonna give them this general idea, and then we're gonna talk about reserves and prepaids. So how that's gonna work is we're going to have, the first line is prepaid interest. That's just simple, so if their interest rate is 4%, and it's a $100,000 loan, it's $4,000 a year is the interest charge. Divide that by 360, that gives you the daily. I think 12 bucks, okay, $11, yeah. So, you know, if I'm saying, you know, Dawn, that we're gonna try to move in maybe around November 20th, just to get you in right before, you know, Thanksgiving, you're gonna have 10 days of prepaid interest, that's $120, right? That's easy, and it's a small number. Okay, the next thing is gonna be the hazard insurance, that's their homeowner's insurance. So, Dawn, homeowner's insurance is a little different than renter's insurance. Homeowner's insurance does require you to pay 1 month up front, so you'll be paying 1 year in advance. Now, this is part of your closing costs, and it is part of the amount that a seller may help you with. You know, we might be able to get you some help with that. But typically, at your price point, if it's a $150,000 house, I'm gonna quote them $1,000 a year. Should be less than that, but $1,000 is a good safe number. You don't ever wanna underquote,
No.
you know, and then have somebody upset. So it's better to overquote. And they're not gonna remember this anyway.
So then, they have to pay 1 month up front?
1 year upfront.
Oh, 1 year. I
Uh-huh.
thought you
So
said
when
month,
shouldn't you put
so-
that in your 15 to 2,500?
It's a separate line. It's a separate category.
So you're gonna put that in later?
Mhm.
You're gonna tell them about that later?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. The next thing, so I'm going to write down 16 on line 34, where there's a little blank in front of months, because we're going to establish your escrow account.
Okay.
So this is how this works. You know, Dawn, were you aware that when you own a home, you have to pay real estate taxes and your insurance? And if you have a mortgage, typically the mortgage company is going to get the yearly total of those two things, divide it up by 12, and then add it to your payment. Was that something you were kind of
I
aware
did have
of?
my mom tell me that.
Tells you about, okay, great, okay, good deal. Okay, so what we're gonna do, part of your closing costs is going to be establishing your escrows. And that's just like a big savings account that the mortgage company keeps for you as you make your monthly payments. I'm gonna put a big E here for the escrow account, and we'll pretend that this is your account. So when you move in, we're gonna stick with this November payment, okay? The tax bills are actually going to come out, this isn't a good example.
Yeah, because you're in November.
This isn't the best
Going back me
example.
up and moving in August.
No, it's okay. It'll still work. It's just cooler if it's not in November. Okay, so we're in November, and the tax bills are actually going to come out right around that time, same time that you're moving in. So probably what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and supplement your escrow account, and it's immediately going to be depleted with the tax bill.
Because you pay ahead.
Because you pay ahead, yeah. Okay. For the, I'm so glad I have this on camera.
Give us another example though, so it's.
Can I give you another example? So let's say you're going to move in mid-May.
Okay.
All right. We already discussed that you're going to get 1 month off, and so you're actually going to start making your payment in July. July 1st would be your first payment. Are we all good with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
We'll just pay interest.
Yeah, so you're just going to pay interest only, which is going to be that $120. Okay. So now you're going to, let's say your tax bill is $2,400 a year. Divide that by 12, that's an extra $200 in your payment. And your insurance bill is going to be about $80 a month when we take that 1,000 and divide it by 12. It's close. So every time you make your payment starting in July, you're going to add $280 to your escrow account. Okay. Tax bills come out at the end of November, and that bill is due in December, and the mortgage companies are very diligent about sending out that payment ASAP because they don't want the taxes to go behind on your house. There's risk of losing your home when that happens, and there's high penalties. So they may even send out that payment before the 1st of December. Okay, so maybe you haven't made that payment, and then we didn't make a payment in June because you technically paid that in July, right? So you're always a month behind, and all we took from this half of the month was just interest. So you're technically already 2.5 months behind on making your tax payment so that the mortgage company has all of the money at the end of the year to pay the bill. So what they're going to do at closing is they're going to grab a couple extra months, anywhere from 2 to 4 months, and supplement your escrow account so that there's plenty of money, and if they need to pay a bill prior to you making your payment, there's a little padding in it. And that way, everything can get paid as normal. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Now with your homeowner's insurance, that gets paid a year in advance up front. But same thing is true. We're going to take that 1 year at $80 and start making payments in July, August, September, right? And we're going to get all the way to next year, and your insurance company is going to send out the bill about 60 days before it's due so that you have time to review it. If you needed to make a change or add something to policy, you have time to do that. In the meantime, your mortgage company, who really is the owner of the house until you pay it off, does not want that policy to lapse. So they're going to give you a little bit of time to review it, and then they're going to dump that money and pay that bill so that there's no risk to your structure at all, and there's no lapse in your policy. So again, you're missing this month, a half a month, and maybe even 2 months because when the timing of these payments happen versus when they need to pay that bill. So we're going to grab some extra months. We're going to fill up that escrow account so that as you make your payments and the bills come due, there's enough money to pay it. Okay? So all said and done, it's going to be number 16 for 16 months of hazard insurance. That's your 1 year up front plus the 4 for padding. I always budget for 4.
Okay.
And then on line 35, 4 months of taxes. And if you've just given them some examples, you can actually fill, that's just simple math. You can go ahead and add that in if you want to. Now on the subject of PMI, that is a subject I do not talk about at the consultation other than to educate the buyer what it is. I don't go into this and this is the rate or this is how much, because there's so many different programs out there right now that will allow you to pay a higher origination fee and get a better rate or eliminate that PMI. But it might cost them a lot more up front. Or there are some of the grant programs, USDA, that'll run specials on the PMI where they don't even have to pay it.
Is that the one where if it's more than 80% loan to value.
Right, and so to explain what that is, PMI is private mortgage insurance. So if you don't have a 20% down payment or greater, then you will have to pay an insurance fee for the bank for them to have insurance against your mortgage. It doesn't help you one bit. If you don't go delinquent, it's not like the insurance company pays the bill for you. They will pay the bank. This fee is also dependent on how much money they are putting down, and even their debt to income ratio and their credit score can affect how much the PMI is. I've just learned not to set an example of average PMI rates are X to X, because then if they end up being one of the higher risk people, they're going to be disappointed. And it's hard to explain. I just don't like to do it. It's too much detail.
And that's kind of a lender job, isn't it?
And so what I do is I circle anything that says PMI in it and say you're a lender, and I'll put ask lender, right? Ask lender. And so I want them to be educated on what it is and why it's there, but you'll have to talk to your lender about what rate you qualify for.
And you're basically educating them on what they need to talk to their lender about.
That's correct.
So they know what they're getting into.
That is correct. That is correct, yes. Okay.
For us Cs that would really know.
Right.
They should have known that when they bought their house.
Yeah, because
Right.
we're not attorneys and we're not lenders, so we can only talk about what we know.
All right, yep. So, I'm gonna put in here, again, $1,500 to about $2,500 on an average sales price. This is exactly what I'm doing. And so now I've got two columns that say $1,500 to $2,500. And then I'll just put a big total, and then $3,000 to $5,000, right? Because isn't that typical? I mean, that's what your closing costs are generally gonna be on the
So you say
average
1,500
price
to
house.
2,500 for this and 1,500 to 2,500 for all this.
For a grand total of $3,000 to $5,000. So I'm giving the buyer a range. I'm not, saying, oh, it's gonna be $4,200.
Right.
I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just giving them a range and just telling them it will depend on the type of loan that you do, the lender that you choose, the rate that you get, the PMI situation. But I'm preparing them so that when they get to the lender, I don't lose them out of fear because the lender throws this $5,000 number down at them.
And then he puts in the down payment, so it goes from $5,000 to $8,000.
Right.
I'm gonna go make copies.
Do you talk about, do you actually talk about, tell them about the down payment too at that time?
Yeah, we're gonna talk, yes, because then the next thing that I'm gonna do is do the payment for them, which is just very easy. This is
Yeah.
just a simple, get on a mortgage calculator, figure their payment, and then insert the taxes and insurance that I kind of estimated for them and give them a ballpark on, because of those first 5 minutes that I'm talking to them and getting expectations, I probably already know from however I chased this buyer down, whether it was an open house or they called me on a sign, I probably already have an idea of their general mortgage amount of what, we're at least within 50 grand of where we're headed.
When you say you also estimate the monthly payment, but you don't really know what their interest is gonna be, so you just.
But you know what
assume-
average is. I mean, I think, I have probably 8 lenders that send me today's rates are this, so you kind of get an idea. And if not, just get on a bank that you like and trust and look at today's rates, and that'll at least get you in spitting distance. And you might even cheat that up. So if I look it up today and I see rates are 4.15, I might use 4.25 or 4.3 for an example, because then if they beat that rate, they're gonna be like, whoa, okay. And then like other half the buyers aren't even gonna read this, like they don't even care. They just want to get the house, So it's really not gonna come back to bite you. But you're at least giving them an estimate on what the payment looks like,
So this is all sitting down after they've already found a place they like and putting in an offer, or?
No, this is
No, this is-
consultation.
Okay, so
This is
even
right up
before that,
front.
so they know, they may not have even been to the bank yet.
Correct.
Okay.
I am very I think this is a personal choice that every agent needs to make, and it also depends on the level that you're at and how much business you're doing. But I am totally willing to sit down with the buyer raw. In other words, they haven't been to a lender, they haven't talked to anybody yet, and I will coach them up on
I
this.
think that's a good idea, because the average person who's never done anything like this wouldn't even have a clue where to start.
Correct. Right.
And they'll just walk away and find somebody like you who will help them.
Yeah.
Right. That is exactly correct. Now, I do not allow craziness into my consultation. So if I am going to do a pre-interview on the phone of, great, how's your credit? Where do you work? What's going on? And if I get any signal of oh yeah, we haven't made a payment on our rent for 3 months, or, you know, then okay, you know, maybe I'll send them to the lender first and then do the consultation. I'm at least gonna get them into the office, make an acquaintance, get to know them, do maybe a 10-minute consultation, you know, because, you know, they may be just fine. They may get approved. But I'm not necessarily gonna sit down with somebody I know who has a 400 credit score. That's irreparable. I mean, it's not something that's gonna happen quickly. It's long term.
Yeah.
It's long term. And it's not that I don't want to give them time or my effort, but at the end of the day, I have to put food on the table for my family. Now, if you're an agent that has a lot of choices, you know, and you've got tons of business and you have leads everywhere, and you want to discern, I only want to spend my time with buyers I know can, you know, are approved, great. Have them come into the office, use our lender in the office to help you pre-qualify them so that you've got them there, you're still meeting them, you're the point of contact, but the lender's going ahead and getting them approved. Then before you spend all the time there, you already know that you've got a viable buyer. And they know that they can actually buy a house. I mean, it's not just for you, it's for them too.
Right.
So for their peace of mind, what they can get approved for. But I'm okay with doing this, you know, like I said, with you know, with a pair of glasses on, that, you know, I'm taking a risk that if they don't end up getting approved, I just wasted an hour to hour and a half of my evening. But at the same time, I've also had people like that, you know, come back and give me a referral. Gosh, we couldn't get approved, but our friend was talking about it. You know, we told them that you were the only person to talk to, because I am willing to give that coaching, but that's who I am. And that may not be who you are, and that may not be who you are, and that may be somebody else in this building, and that doesn't mean that all 4 or 5 of us couldn't do a buyer's consultation and get to the same result in different ways. So this isn't the only way to do this, but this is a proven method that I use that works for me.
So when do you, because I have a buyer and I've gone through most of this stuff, and they did sign the contract, or he said sign the contract, she can't. But they're afraid to go to the lender, and I'm having trouble getting them. Yeah.
Well, have a meeting here or something, say, I'll go with you.
No, that's not. They had a house taken in Arizona. The Attorney General, they actually have a piece of paper that says it was fraudulent, that they took the house and all this stuff, but it still hit their credit. So they're part of a class action suit. I need to go to the lender, so the lender either says yes or no. And I'm having trouble getting in there.
It's gonna hurt to buy a house. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well, and I've told him, I said, you cannot make an offer on a house without a pre-qualification letter. You have to have that.
okay, so let's role play that, and you be your buyer and give me the objections that you're hearing. Okay, so so what I'll need you to do is go on to the lender and get your pre-approval. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I do that.
Okay, all right, great. So when would we commit that you would be, you want me to have XYZ lender call you? Would that be more helpful?
I haven't tried that. Yeah, that would probably help.
That's what I mean.
I didn't think of that.
They seem pretty easy to me. Are they being that easy?
Oh, yeah, he's like really laid back. She doesn't.
But they just won't
She
do it?
doesn't talk, so.
So they say yes to everything, but they just won't go do it?
Yeah, oh no.
But when can
he
I
said-
pick you up?
I was thinking about Quicken, and I was like, oh, you don't want to use Quicken, you want somebody in town, so if there's a problem. So I've given him now a list of 3 more vendors, and one of them's a broker that I got from Mark, and I'm hoping that that'll help him go. He's afraid of banks because of what happened,
Sure.
so.
So Kay, you realize that until I have this approval letter, I can't take you guys out and show you houses. I mean, you understand that, right?
Right.
Yeah, because sellers want to know that if they're getting out, you know, taking the time to leave their home, that I'm bringing in a qualified buyer.
Right.
So why don't I have Bob Jones give you a call and see if we can't get that approval going? Because I'd really like to get you guys in the car next week. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now let's pretend a week goes by, I call you, and you haven't, right? Because this is what's happening. So
Right.
hey, you know, Kay, how's it going? Did you guys talk to Bob?
Oh, no, yeah, he left me a message yesterday, but I haven't called him back yet.
Called him back. Okay. So Kay, why haven't you done that?
I don't have an answer for
Is that what he says?
that. No, he talks about other stuff. He's just like, oh, yeah, I know,
I have to take the
I
dog
need to
to
get
the
that
vet.
done, or, you know, took Cheryl to her rehab.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kay. Well, you know, I'm here for you, whatever you need me. And, you know, I don't want my motivation for you to buy a home to be bigger than yours. And what I'm sensing is that I'm wanting to get you out and get you, you know, good interest rate and get you a good deal while prices are still reasonable and because the market's starting to pick up. And yet I'm sensing some hesitation, and I know you guys have been through a big financial hardship. You know, how scary to have your home taken. But, you know, I feel like maybe I'm pushing you too hard. Would that be are you feeling that way?
No, not really.
Okay. So here's what I propose. I would really like for you to call Bob today and get your application started. And if for any reason you don't connect with him and you know you don't get this done by the end of this week, then I feel like maybe we need to put your home search on hold until you guys are ready to take that step. Okay, off the record, that's a hard conversation to have, but I would rather have that conversation than to have them drag you around, you know.
Well, he's not, actually. When I initially gave him Pulaski's information, I waited a couple of weeks and I called him, because he's on a drip, you know, and he
Mhm.
sees that, I know he sees the houses, but I called him, I just said, I want to stay in touch with you, I want to know what's going on. And he said, well, I just don't want to take up your time. You know, I know that, you know, I don't want to waste your time taking us around to see houses if we're not ready to do it.
Right.
Well, now he's at that point, they were waiting for his wife's disability to come in, and now it's here. And so he's there, but he's still not taking that additional step.
Yeah. How long ago did the house get taken from them?
Oh, a year or two, probably.
Yeah, they may not be able to purchase. I mean,
I know, that's why I want him to go.
I think
That's one of the reasons why I
I
want him
think
to go.
you kind of chalk this one up to you may not have a viable buyer. Check in on them every couple weeks until they do what you tell them to do.
Okay.
I know that's hard to let go of an opportunity, like, oh, just
Especially
get them
in the beginning.
approved. Right, I get that.
Yeah.
I understand that. Having the girl that's first year in real estate spent Christmas Eve morning showing houses to somebody that refused to sign my buyer agency, and I wasn't strong enough at that time, and totally wasted my morning. But it's through experiences like that that will make you stronger and gives you the scripts to move forward with the next time. And because then you won't forget to say, well, let's set that appointment for you. Well, how about I go with you, or I'll take you to the lender. Do you want me to pick you up? You know, like where you're getting more active and getting them to do what you know is the right thing. I'm not talking about manipulation, and I'm just talking about helping them take that step that obviously he's terrified to take.
Right.
But what I was saying is, it's in our office, right?
No,
Pulaski's in our office.
he doesn't want to go to Pulaski.
Oh, okay.
Do you see why?
He doesn't want to go to a bank.
Okay, well,
So that's why I gave him the
What a
broker
credit union.
information. Well, I gave him a broker on purpose, because banks,
Right.
it's a different process.
Well, say they
So-
weren't, you know, what's in my office, I'd be glad to,
I've
you
already
know,
done that. He's
introduce you
already
to
come
him
Pulaski.
and,
Yeah.
I mean, I tried that, and I told him I would make the appointment, go with him, and they could meet me in the office. And he just said he wanted to wait for her money to come in. So
He's
now
not
it's
ready.
in.
Yeah. He's just not quite ready to
don't
be
they
there.
take 3 years behind it?
Well, the rule, it depends on, see, what I'm curious to know is how, like, was it a foreclosure? Was it a fraudulent sale and they just took the house away, or what?
I don't know, because I
Did they
didn't know
show you
this
the
was
letter?
the Attorney General, Arizona Attorney General has contacted them and sent them a letter and said, your house will clear. All the people who own, whoever ran, whatever the bank was, I don't know. I didn't ask for details.
So if I'm understanding, they were foreclosed on illegally,
Yes,
so they have a foreclosure on their record.
yes.
I don't know.
That's why I thought he needs to talk to a lender just about that, because he
Right.
doesn't know if he can buy a house.
Right.
You know?
Would they show you
And
the
he
letter
won't
if you
know,
ask him?
he won't know.
Yeah, she has a copy.
No, I don't have a copy.
Oh, I think you
No.
said you did.
No.
If you get that letter, you can go to the lender and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then you can tell them, you know what?
Well,
I
just
want
because
him to
the
do it.
attorney, yeah, no, I agree.
I
Just
don't want
because the
him to
attorney
mess with
general
that.
has written a letter doesn't mean that it's wiped off or it's
It-
forgiven.
I don't think it will.
It's just that you were suing these people and you're involved. So if you want to jump in, come in along with us. That's what I think it is that they've identified that the bank did something
Right.
not right.
Yeah,
But
but
I
if
think
they're
even
willing to
if-
show you the letter, then they're,
Even if the bank did something wrong, it's on his credit, and he's gonna have to get it removed from his credit. I
Okay.
think. I don't think they're just gonna take it,
Okay,
you know.
right, okay.
But anyway, sorry.
Okay, no,
We
that's
move
okay.
on.
We're gonna get back on track.
I'm just gonna go
That
with
was
that buyer.
that was a darn
First
good
buyer.
that was a darn good question, and which brought up a great script. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works sometimes. Okay, so now I've got all of that done, and I'll just give them that. I don't really keep a copy of it for myself, but I give it to the buyer and let them put it in their little folder, and then commit them to doing the loan approval and maybe calling the lender right there or sending them an email and connecting them so that the lender can just do it themselves.
Mhm.
So, do you mean?
No.
Okay. So, right. So then, after I do that, then I'm going to take them through the process of buying a home. And that's where I'm going to use a lot of my little supplemental things, because as I talk about different things, then I'm going to hand them a brochure that might, talk about it. So
And
this is where...
before or after you've looked on the big screen at possible properties?
Before. Yeah, I still haven't actually shown them a house yet. Yeah, online. So,
This is just educating them and getting them ready to sign your buyer's
right.
agreement.
Right. Exactly. Right. So we're going to talk about, so this is how the process is going to work. We're going to get your approval. We're going to know exactly what you can afford to spend. And then I'm going to set you up on an MLS specialized search. That's a lot higher level of search than you can do on your own. And you'll get sent maybe every day a list of homes that would meet your needs based on what we're going to talk about tonight. And then I want you to pick maybe 20 to 30 houses that you do like of that list, and I want you to drive by them first. And the reason is because sometimes you'll drive by a house and you'll see the neighborhood or you'll see the neighbor's house and you'll just decide right then and there you wouldn't want to buy it.
You don't want to.
Right, because our time together is so precious, and I'm sure you don't want to spend 12 hours a day looking at houses, right? I mean, it might sound like fun at first, but it's really not. So we want to narrow it down so that you're only looking at the best of the best houses. So you're going to do that drive-by first. I want you to kind of rank the houses in the order that you like them, and then we're going to take your top 5 or 6. And then we're going to look at a couple of those the very first time that we actually go out and look at houses together, maybe 3. Generally don't like to do more than 3 the first time I meet with somebody, unless there's some other factor of time involved, because the first time a buyer looks at a house, they move slower. They really take it in, they want to touch and open cabinets and kind of, even though they know at the front door it may not be the house for them, they'll still kind of want to take the experience of looking, and so they'll take a little bit more time. Once you've done 3 or 4 houses and they get the feel of, what it feels like to really like something versus not like something, it will move faster. So the second or third appointment, if it gets to that, I'll show 4, 5, 6 houses maybe at once. Because I want my time to be, it's more efficient for me to show more houses and then to set multiple appointments. But I don't want to overwhelm that buyer. And you might be able to tell from the consultation, are they going to be easily overwhelmed? Or, do they seem to know exactly what they want and they're probably going to pick 3 and pick one of those, ultimately. So you'll kind of have to discern that for yourself. But I want to paint the picture that I'm not just here to open every door. Like, I want you to look through this list. I want you to discern it, because you're not going to buy the 25th best house on your list. Right, you're going to buy probably one of the top 5. I mean, to be honest. And we may look at a couple houses and you decide, ooh, I thought I wanted a 2-car garage, but you know what? Now that I've seen one, I think I need a 3. And so we'll change the parameters of your search. Or I thought I wanted to be south of Berry Road, but now I'm thinking maybe Smithville might be okay, just to give me some more choices, right? So, you know, they're gonna make some decisions after you look at that first group, and you may have to retool that search. It just depends on the buyer. With first-time buyers, I find that does happen. It's very rare a first-time buyer looks at the first house and goes, take it. But I have taken somebody that knows what they're doing, they know what they want. You take them to 3 houses, they pick one, and you're done. So every buyer's going to be different. But I at least want to paint the picture that we're not going to look at 50 houses. That's not normal. Okay, you might do it, but it's not normal. Okay, you'll make those choices with your buyer as you go, and this is where I get the promise from the buyer to say, okay, so Dawn, you're going to look through that list. We're going to pick 3 or 4, and then maybe ultimately 6 to 10 that we'll actually look at. And many times, my buyers will pick one of those. Because you're not going to buy the 25th best house, are you? No, you're going to buy one of the very best.
Yeah.
So we really won't have to look at that many houses. Now, in the situation that we do look at 6 to 10, and you're struggling, you don't feel like we found it, then that means that somewhere in tonight's conversation I've missed something. Or maybe you just didn't know that you didn't like something that you told me you did, or, you know, we'll discover together, you know, what makes the best home for you. And after I watch you look at some homes too, I'll be able to better guide you. So if you're thinking, oh, I really like this house, but I know you already looked at one just like it and didn't like the layout, I'm probably gonna say, let's not look at that one, but I've got a better one, right? So I'll make some choices on what you're gonna see, and you'll make some choices. Is that fair?
That sounds fair.
Okay, great, because that way you don't end up showing the same split entry to the buyer that doesn't like split entries, but they just fall in love with the kitchen, you know, and so they think that maybe they'd like the split entry, but really they won't. So you're just kind of wasting your time, and a stronger buyer's agent can get that permission from that buyer up front to say, is it okay if I overrule? Because otherwise you feel bad. You don't want to tell them no. Oh, I know you really love the white granite counters, but no. Right?
It's a split entry.
Right? Oh, yeah, exactly. Or am I allowed to tell you what I think? You know, you have to get that permission.
So
Then
that's the promise you're looking for.
that's the promise I'm looking
Okay.
for. Is, can I be honest with you? Do I have permission to guide you? And if we don't find it, can we come back to this table and just reevaluate what it is you are looking for, just to make sure I have full understanding of it? Would that be fair?
That sounds fair.
Great. So there, you get 10, 12, how this came up in, I don't know if it was last buyer agent mastermind, where they keep showing again and again and again and again and again, and I'm like, stop and reconsult. Because you're wasting your buyer's time. They're, you know, it's not just your time, it's their time too. And you're not doing them a service just by opening every single door for them and hoping that, you know, you can throw a dart at something. So.
It's funny, I've had enough of your classes now. I wanted to say, do you really mean Berry Road? Or
Yeah, exactly.
would
Right, 'cause that's
would
coming.
Smithville be okay?
Right. She's way ahead of us, people. Okay, yes, that is correct. So I'm going to set that parameter. I'm going to talk about the day we find the house. You're going to write an earnest deposit check, and you know that check will eventually be cash. So be prepared. That's money that's going to leave your account. When you say hold the earnest check, some people actually think you're going to
Yeah.
hold the earnest. And I have had a buyer bounce a check because they didn't understand it was physically going to get cashed. So make sure that you're very clear about that, especially the night you write the offer. Okay.
So when do they actually, because I don't remember when I bought my houses, they actually do it once the offer is
Is accepted.
accepted?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, the question, I was supposed to repeat questions. The question was, when does the earnest deposit actually get cashed? And it is as soon as the offer is accepted. The buyer's agent will deliver the earnest to the listing agent or the title office, depending on the listing agent's instructions. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to talk about the inspections, and so then I'm going to get out my little inspector brochures, and I'm going to spread those out. And here's some people that I know, love, and trust.
Do you need
And
those brochures here?
yeah, I'll share them off camera, because I don't pay for anybody forever. So I'll show them that, and then there's something. Oh, here it is. Then I have this typical inspections list, and this is something that Casey RAR came out with years and years ago, and we just retyped it up and put the company logo on it. And it's kind of a list of the different inspections that a buyer might want to think about when they find the ultimate home that they think they want to buy. Not everything on this list is going to apply. There are going to be some things on here that, you know, if the house doesn't have a pool, then obviously you're not going to need a swimming pool inspection. And you kind of got to show the buyer that, because they kind of look at this list and get a little freaked out. But this is a liability helper for you, so that the buyer can't come back against you later and say, well, you didn't tell us we needed to have this XYZ thing inspected. So I may not have them sign it the very first night that I meet with them, because that's a little intimidating, because I haven't even got them to sign the buyer agency yet. But I might pull it aside and then have them sign it when they sign the buyer agency, or at least at when they make their offer. Okay?
Is this another compliance thing?
It is not compliance. That is just, that is a bonus form.
CYA?
Yeah, a lot of agents in our office used it for a long time, but it's not part of our compliance. Again, it's just a nicety. It's just part of your instructing. It gives me a chance to talk about inspections and set up expectations, so that, Mr. Buyer, you know, the inspections are not so that we can ask for every single loose screw, drippy faucet, and squeaky door to be fixed. It's to, you know, you're buying the house, but it's to make sure that you don't have large mechanical expenses looming just over the fence. As soon as you buy the house, then suddenly, boom, the air conditioner goes out. So we want to make sure that the big ticket items are definitely taken care of. And I'm just, again, setting some expectations so that when the buyer gets the inspection report and it's this big and there's tons of, you know, pictures and things in it, they're not having to freak out and overwhelmed at the amount of information that they're receiving. That, hey, you know, you're going to see a lot of stuff on this inspection. We're just looking for big ticket item. Okay? And so I'll set that aside. Also, in case they stray off of my preferred list, there is a list of acronyms that inspectors that are recognized as qualified, which is what our contract calls for, should have. So that way, if they've got Uncle Bob or Cousin Joe that's an inspector, great, they can look at the house. But if we're going to ask for repairs, or if we're going to, you know, break a contract because of the condition of something that Uncle Bob says, they've got to be ASHI, and they have to be in, or, you know, one of these acronyms,
ASHI or
and they
ASHI.
have to be independent. They can't be related to the buyer, and that's what it says in the actual contract.
So the whole house inspection, that's one of the things that,
Right. Yes. And like I said, not all of this stuff applies on every single
Right.
thing, and they're not going to order all of these inspections.
but
But
the
it's
whole
just
house is kind of typical.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You'll
That's
definitely.
about the $350 deal.
Yes,
And if they
yes.
add termites or anything like that, that's $50 to $75 extra dollars or more.
And the
That's
other
what
was
Mike
the right
does.
owner.
That's what my husband does, is
The whole house.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about inspections, then I'm going to talk about the appraisal process. And that the bank, the most important part of this is making sure that the buyer understands that the bank does not do a true 100% value appraisal. All they are really trying to do is verify that the amount of the home is worth what the buyer is paying for it. In some rare cases, you'll see an appraiser over appraise, but typically the appraisal will come in right at purchase price, 1,000 or 2 over, and that's just kind of how they do it. So, Mr. Buyer, you know, when you get that appraisal, I just want you to understand, if we're looking at a house and maybe it's got a little ugly going on, but we know if we just cleaned it up, made the carpet neutral and replaced the counters, you know, for a couple grand, you could probably resell it for maybe 10 grand more. It's not going to reflect that in the appraisal. Even if we think you're getting a good deal, and we can see that because I'm going to help you by going, whenever we make an offer on a home, before we do, we're going to look at that whole area of sales and make sure that if the neighbor's house, just like yours, sold a month ago, we want to know how much that is, and I'm going to share that information with you. Isn't that great? Isn't that helpful? Of course. I'm just setting expectations, because nothing is worse than having a buyer get to the appraisal part and then be upset because the house didn't appraise for what I said it probably could be worth, or just what they were thinking in their head, you know. So, okay, then we'll talk about the closing, and you know, yay, that's when you get the keys typically, and just kind of depending on timing and how things are going, I may or may not be giving the buyer some instructions on split closing and possession. Because a lot of times if your buyer is a renter, it's very easy for them to close one day, and then if that seller needs to go buy another house, they might need another day or two to complete the closing and then physically get possession of the house they're buying. So if the buyer's a renter, I may talk to them briefly about the day you close may not be the day you get your keys. That's all part of the negotiation. That it is typical for a buyer to ask for, or a seller to ask for 2 to 3 days after the closing in order to complete the sale of their next home. And we don't really, balk at that too much. But if it gets more than that, maybe you'd want to ask for a rent back or some extra closing cost to cover the holding cost until you get that actual possession of the house. So we'll talk about that when that happens. Okay, now, after I've done that, I'm going to stop talking and start asking questions, and then let my buyer ask questions. So this is where your question asking skills are very, very important. I have a questionnaire, and I'm just going to kind of work my way down it, and typically I do like to start with distance, because a lot of the answers to some of these questions I already know from the pre-interview or when I first met them, so it's not like I need to do so Dawn, have you ever bought a sold house before? You've just told me that, right?
Yeah.
So I can kind of skip through this. So I usually start with what parts of town are you most interested in living? So Dawn, play that little game with me. So where do you want to live?
I think I'd like to stay north of Berry Road.
Okay, north of the river for sure. Okay. Now you say north of Berry Road. So how far north is too far north?
South of Smithville.
South of Smithville. Okay. You want to live in a cow pasture.
No, I mean, between Berry Road and Smithville. That's the space.
There's
But I
not a
would
lot in
like
between there.
If we could find a house in a pasture, I would be interested in that.
Okay, great.
Especially if there was a barn and a pond.
Okay, all right. So if we if we say Smithville is too far north, what part of Smithville is too far north?
Well, I think I'd like to stay in the North Kansas City School District, so like Staley area.
Okay, I see. Okay, yes, I see what you're saying. Okay, so if so we talk about tonight, and I find out the most perfect house for you just happens to be in the Smithville School District, sitting at about 150th Street. Is that really too far north?
If it's the perfect house, probably not.
Probably not. Okay. So what if that house sits maybe on the north side of 92, like just through Smithville, past the downtown area?
My husband works in Overland Park, so I don't know if I want to go that far.
So definitely not that far. Okay. Okay, great. But up to maybe 92, because that would be about 150th-ish. That would be okay. So south of 92.
Yeah.
So is the school district more important or the house?
Well, for 5 more years, the school district is.
Okay. So really, if I'm hearing you correctly, even if the perfect house was in Smithville, that's Smithville schools, is that okay?
I'd have to think about it. I would really prefer the North Kansas City.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. That's why we ask. No, you're doing good. That's why we ask the questions, right? Because that's exactly how a buyer acts. So, because they're not sure, they don't know, they hadn't thought about this stuff. So I'm getting you to think about it, even though you're making it up. Okay. All right. So typically what's going to happen is you're going to be able to push that buyer further than you think that they tell you. And then I'm going to do that to the east, to the west, and to the south. So I may even test, what if it's at, North Oak and I don't know, there wouldn't be anything in Staley High School, I guess, in that location, but if there was a location that was south of Berry Road that met that criteria, then I'm going to test that too. And I'm going to push you down. Okay, would there be any other high schools? Would there be any other school districts, right? Are you sure you wouldn't like to consider XYZ, PDQ, whatever? So I'm going to push that buyer all over the map until I feel very confident, because what you don't want is to have a buyer say, I want to be Berry Road to Smithville, have the perfect house show up on a realtor.com search south of Berry Road that they would consider, and then they're like, well, why didn't you show me that house? And that's what typically can happen, and it kind of makes you feel a little silly when it does. And so that's why you want to ask so many good detailed questions. And I'm not going to go through all of that example, but you're going to apply that same theory to every single question that you're going to ask them. whether it be number of bedrooms. Well, what if it had 2 bedrooms? And then you're gonna find their thresholds of, no, 2 bedrooms is not okay, has to be 3. But maybe somebody that says they need a 5-bedroom would be okay with a 4-bedroom if there was a finished basement, because they just need some flex space. It's not really that they need
Just
the
have to really
bedroom.
push every boundary to find out where is the absolute limits.
Where is the limits, good and bad.
Mhm.
And then that should leave you, that's gonna take you a good 15 to maybe 30 minutes to kind of talk through a lot of the, what type of houses do you like? Have you seen anything that before? And you're kind of shutting it down and letting them talk, okay? Once I get through that part of the questionnaire, I am ready to technically ask for the buyer agency to be signed. So really, this kind of concludes this part of the class. But I do want to tell you this, that once you've done this, I will open the MLS on the big screen, and I'm going to set up the search that we just talked about. And I'm going to show them how to use the MLS portal, so when they get the links, they can play around with doing the map. I'm going to show them how to do the Google Street View. I'm going to show them how to do the helicopter around the house, so that they can see all those cool tools, because those are things that's integrated into the search. They don't have to go to another site and enter in the address to look up Google Street View. And that's what keeps them tied to you and keeps them off of, sites that aren't as reliable, that, don't have the right information, or, show houses that really are under contract as available. So if I can get them tied to me and dependent on me and my search, which is real time, you're getting the only real-time search available when you work with an agent like me. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up and get their email address in there and have it send. And if they've got phone, email on their phone, they're like, oh, we got it, and I'll ask them to open it and just play with it, just so that they're comfortable with it, or play with it on the screen so they understand how to navigate it. And then after that, I'm like, great. So that just leaves, making it official. So are we good that I'm your agent?
Where do I sign?
Right. There's 100 different ways to close that. It kind of depends on the mood. But, so I'll just say, great, so am I hired? Or, oh, great, so obviously you need an agent. Are we comfortable moving forward? Can I be your agent? It can even be just as cute as that. It just depends on who your client is and who
I
you're
bet the
talking
guys
to.
aren't quite that cute if they say that.
Yeah, right.
You'd be surprised,
Yeah.
When do you fill out the buyer's information sheet?
Well, that is something that I hand to them. So when I'm doing that buyer agency contract and kind of, getting
Okay,
things
so
filled
they
out,
can start on
I
that.
hand this to them, and that just distracts them, and that way they're not staring at me writing, and it gives them something to do.
Well, and that's why it'd be a good time to get the birthdays, because everybody's in a good mood, and
Right. Yeah. No, it's a great time to get all this information. This is something that I keep, and then I've got all of their information, for my
For your drip.
database. Yes, exactly. And I will tell you that if you do this right, and like I've got a sheet in here for when you're talking about the lending, about bring these things to the lending appointment, right? And for the inspections, here's the brochures, here's about the home warranty. I do kind of work my way through some of these things as I talk about each step. There should be no reason why they would not sign your buyer agency, because I guarantee you that the majority of agents out there do not go to this level of detail. It's more like, what are you looking for? Let's queue it up. I'll set you up on a search. Let me know when you want to look at a house.
And then you may never hear from them again.
And you may never hear from them
Because
again.
they're
Or,
going to call somebody else.
or they'll call the
even-
listing agent on the house, because if they drive by it, it's right there on the sign.
right. So in the second step of this class, which is buyer agency agreements, then I'm going to go back and show you even further how using the buyer agency can script and educate them in what happens when they see open houses, why they always want to call you, right? And so we're going to troubleshoot all the things that tend to get you and your buyers in trouble when they stray from you. So.
And so when is that class?